Hello. Tonight we will be leaving the comfort of Muncie, Indiana to journey virtually to San Quentin State Prison, the oldest prison in California, which has over 3,000 incarcerated individuals and a preceding and infamous legacy of hardship and notorious inmates throughout the years. Connections Live will be peeling back that legacy and look at the impact of a certain program within the walls of San Quentin. The San Quentin News is a news agency written by the incarcerated men at San Quentin State Prison whose mission is to report on rehabilitative efforts to increase public safety and achieve social justice. We will be talking to two ex-incarcerated individuals whose lives were impacted greatly by the San Quentin News. We will hear their stories from printing the newspaper to their lives after San Quentin. I would like to first welcome Jonathan Chiu.
My name is Jonathan Chiu. I was incarcerated for the last 16 years and I was released back on May 1st of this year. I was at San Quentin State Prison for the last 5 years for my incarceration, and I worked for the San Quentin News.
You spent time at San Quentin. What's your story? What's your personal testimony?
Originally, I was actually sentenced to 50 years of life. Back in 2004, I was convicted of first-degree murder, and my earliest parole date was going to be 2054. However, about 2018, the day before Thanksgiving, Governor Jerry Brown commuted my sentence to 17 years of life because he saw the rehabilitation and the change I have. Over the years, I have been incarcerated. And I went to parole board on September 11th of 2019. And shortly thereafter, again, May 1st, I was released. And now I'm back out in Oakland, California. I'm currently in transitional housing. I'm in actually a house. This is my room that I stay in. It's a three-bedroom house, and I share with two other roommates who are also formerly incarcerated.
Let's get into the talk about the San Quentin News. Could you kind of tell us what the San Quentin News is?
San Quentin News has a very long history. We are basically a monthly newspaper. Back inside, newspapers are still our current medium because that's how we get it. We do not have access to internet inside prisons, and this is the way that we can reach everybody inside California. We publish a monthly newspaper, and we also publish a quarterly magazine, which is also right behind me. And basically, we talk about stories about rehabilitation, about laws, and we cover both San Quentin, California, and also nationwide stories that has to do with criminal justice. First we want to educate the public about what really about is inside prison and what rehabilitation looks like. When generally people pick up a paper outside, they read about the story about a person who commits a crime and then goes to trial, but they actually don't, read about what happens after a person goes into a prison. So, we try to tell the story after that. We tell the story of a person who, what he chooses to do after with his life inside, basically, with his time that he's been given.
Before COVID-19, how did that making a newspaper from scratch to delivery look? And could you maybe describe how it looked after COVID-19?
So before COVID-19, again, we don't have access to the internet, though we do have computers in our newsroom. What would happen is that, generally we cover stories around San Quentin, whether it's a graduation for a self-help group or an event where somebody would stop by, like Van Jones, or a celebrity would stop by and we'd cover it. And we would write those stories, from inside. The other half of it, we would use source material from out here. And what would happen is one of our advisors, he would basically, I wouldn't call it old-fashioned way because, it's a flash drive is, I guess, still current technology. We have an advisor who basically downloads all the information onto PDFs and puts it on a flash drive. And, through the authorization of Lieutenant Sam Robinson, he's able to bring it into us. Then we're able to print out the source material and provide that to the rest of our staff members and journalism guild students, and they would write the stories. We would have volunteers, advisors we have, and they would come in a couple times a week and they would help us edit and proof the articles. And these are professional reporters who've worked for the AP as well as other leading magazines and newspapers before newspapers were actually a thing. And they come in and they're retired journalists, so they come in and help us. We also have Professor William Drummond from the UC Berkeley School of Journalism who come in and help us um, put our paper out. He has a program where he brings Berkeley students into actual Berkeley students who are in their last year of school, and they will come into the newsroom inside the prison. They would get cleared and have authorization, and they would come in and help, edit articles and do a lot of stuff that obviously we couldn't do, as far as like going outside and doing interviews or even just going to a place to take pictures. And that's what they would come in and assist us in those ways. And also, of course, we all have a dedicated staff. Currently, we had a dedicated staff of 15 minus one, and there are 2 people who just got found suitable by the full board. So it will be 12. Possibly, or even less. I would do the layout. That was my primary job, as the layout, and I also made the crosswords. And we would basically assemble it from the inside. Once we would assemble it, and we would go through the authorization process of getting it cleared. And by that means we're not censored in any way. What we do is that we do write about CDCR and about the stories, that's affecting not only San Quentin, but other prisons as well. But we do give them a copy, and just to make sure that it's fact checked and that we didn't misquote them in any way, because we want to make sure that we are stating facts in our paper for our readers. So once everything is cleared, we actually send it to an outside printing press, Meridian Sun, and they would basically print it for us, and they would deliver it to all 35 of the other 35 prisons in the state of California, as well as other donors and other incarcerated people from other states who are subscribers as well.
Oh, wow. So how do you know how those subscribers come to be? Do they access a website maybe, or?
Yes, we have a website at sanquentinnews.com where people can donate to us, and in return, they would get a 12-month subscription to our paper as well as our magazine. So we're kind of pretty much like a family. And, I still talk to the people that I work with. They're my friends. Inside, we're basically like, together all the time. We work together, we eat together. A lot of times, we live together, obviously. Sometimes like we live like in the same cell. So, we have like, there's just so many members I can't even like start.
Well, I really appreciate you joining us today and telling us about the San Quentin News and yourself. Thank you for getting involved with Connections Live this way. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on your show. My name's Ali Tamboura. I'm a manager at the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative in our Criminal Justice Reform Department. I'm also formerly incarcerated, spent 12 years of my life in the California Department of Corrections. Also one of the 3, I don't want to say founders, but 3 men who reinvigorated the San Quentin News after it had been shuttered for almost 20 years.
If you could tell us maybe a little bit about your testimony with your life in prison and afterwards, that would be great.
Sure. One of the things about prison is you kind of lose your purpose. And like I'm very, very open about, I was sentenced to originally 17 years in prison for assault with a firearm. And, when I landed in prison, it was not what I thought it was going to be. I had gotten my, my outlook on what prison was going to be was what I learned from TV and the media. And I got there, and, even though it was a very dangerous place where I first landed, it wasn't everything that I thought it was going to be. But like when I started this conversation, I lost my purpose. My purpose in life before was being a father, a husband, a business owner, an employer. And once I got to prison, all of that purpose went away. And my purpose really changed to a point of survival on that prison yard. I had a very, very progressive prison counselor. I learned about a college program at San Quentin, and he said if I got my points down, and the levels work on a point system, that they would transfer me to San Quentin so I could attend college. And when I got there, I got a job, a prison job assignment working in the print shop. And there was a warden Ayers, Bob Ayers, who wanted to reinvigorate the San Quentin News after it had been shuttered. And my initial response was like, no, because you really don't want to be in the spotlight in the carceral setting. But eventually, because I had a lot of tech acumen and hadn't spent a lot of time, a lot of the men in San Quentin were lifers, and many of them, most of them were incarcerated before there was even an internet, not to mention like personal computers and things like that. And so because I had a little bit of tech knowledge, I jumped into the newspaper and started doing the technical end of it, like doing the layout, designing the logo, actually doing the printing also. Through working with the San Quentin News, gave me purpose. It gave me something to do, something that I could feel proud of. And it also brought news to the people who are incarcerated, right? Through a lens or a paradigm of other incarcerated people who are journalists.
How important do you think that perspective is from an incarcerated standpoint?
I can't put a level of importance on it, besides that everything that it previously had been written about when you think about criminal justice and criminal justice reform is written by the larger news media, the mainstream news media. So you don't get those incarcerated voices. When we read like a court case, like for instance, the Supreme Court case that resulted in lowering California's prison population, most of that was written in the mainstream media through the paradigm of mainstream media. But writing it through the paradigm of incarcerated people gave our constituents, which are all the 100 and back then 160,000 men and women incarcerated in California, to shine a light on it through how we see it and how it's going to actually affect us, key to the newspaper's success.
With the perspective you bring, can you tell me what San Quentin believes its mission is? What's the mission of the newspaper itself?
They have a motto about being written by incarcerated people, but really it's to give people the news that they need to move through the carceral setting and through reentry, and also news about great rehabilitative programs, and news about great things that not only incarcerated people are doing, but great things that some of the correctional staff are doing. So we made some conscious decisions. We didn't report about violence. We didn't report about kind of, there are the negative aspects of prisons that we reported about, but really about the good things that were happening and how we could take the good things that were happening at San Quentin and spread them to other prisons in California and the United States. And also, providing a source of information that was legitimized by us being incarcerated people. So incarcerated people getting news from incarcerated people rather than mainstream media. Starting it back up was tumultuous because, none of us were journalists and none of us knew about how to build a publication. And so there was a lot of work done, getting the right software and getting the prison to buy software that they didn't really want to buy to create the newspaper, going to class every night to learn how to read or learn how to write in journalistic style, getting source material. There's no internet connectivity inside the carceral settings. So the newspaper, it's just different. It's different than any other type of media that's out there. So people really enjoy getting it and really enjoy reading, like from the perspective of incarcerated people. Sure, there's naysayers. They don't have to subscribe. They don't have to read. But we also, put the issues up on the internet in PDF form, free of charge at sanquentinnews.com.
Do you have any final comments on anything I haven't touched on, anything you'd like to say about the San Quentin News or your experience with it?
I think one of the things that I really want to relay is that there's this language in the United States around incarcerated people. And as you've noticed through our conversation, I refer to people as incarcerated people because they're people. Most mainstream media, ex-felons, prisoners, convicts, ex-convicts. That stuff does nothing to help the person. It does nothing to help that person reintegrate into society. And you know, if you put labels on people, sometimes people become those labels, right? Maybe not purposefully. Most people in prison are there because they were in a bad situation and made a bad decision, like in my case, or social economic reasons. Very few people are what society deems as like just sociopaths. You know, we have 2.2 million people in prison, more than any other nation. We have 4% of the nation's or the world's population, at 25% of the world's prison population. And I don't think we're inherently evil as a nation. I just think we're doing it wrong. We have to create second chances for people. Means making clear pathways for people to thrive post-incarceration and lower the recidivism rate and make sure our communities aren't re-victimized. And so, you know, it's really up to the community to start rethinking how they think about people who are formerly incarcerated and people who are currently incarcerated. Thanks for having me. And I'm glad that you reached out and we had, you know, a wonderful conversation today. I'm grateful for your listeners for, you know, taking the time to listen to the story about the San Quentin News. And I urge them to go out and, you know, Google it and read some of the articles. And if you're able to donate, donate. If you're not, I urge you to definitely change your perspective on what it means for a person to be incarcerated. And yeah, thank you.